Welcome, I'm CuddlyJay, and today we have lots to do in Stalcraft. First we have to go meet with a defector. Yes, a person of interest. A person that I personally wouldn't trust with a 10-foot pole. But I guess in this storyline, we will have to trust him. Eventually I meet up with the defector, and we figure out his name is I. And I have to say, he has quite the eye for the outfit. It is very stylish and very cool. We find out from I that this group called the Orderlies are recruiting more stalkers and bandits for their cause in the old zone, which means we must now, well, sneak into their base, investigate the Orderlies, and find their leader Morg. And just so you know, Morg has a nickname, Morg the Immortal. Yes, you don't want to mess with him, that's for sure. Once we had a chat with the defector, we headed out to the orderly base, and I almost immediately die. Quite embarrassing. Anyways, we eventually get to the orderly base, and I go through the gate to the main part of the base. Now this base is actually quite big. Simply, we have to walk around, figure out what to do, and so forth. And I have to say, this area, I've never liked it. I think it's absolutely awful, gameplay-wise. They kind of just throw you in here, and you have to kind of figure it out. And there's no direction, you just gotta, talk to everyone as fast as you can. Now, around this base, there will be guards that are walking around. If he sees you, he will talk to you, basically just talk your way out of it, and then you'll be teleported out of that conversation. There isn't really actually a threat here of being found or discovered, and no one will actually turn on you and start shooting you. It's just not, it's just not going to happen. Anyways, I decided to approach this guard here, this lovely man, and we had a little discussion mentioning some food poisoning from a dodgy canned meat. And eventually, he allowed me into the building, because guess what? It has happened to me. I have had food poisoning before, but it was a burrito, and it was quite awful. Anyways, after a bunch of tedious searching around and trying to figure out what to do next, I found a door with the quest marker. So we entered another building within the orderly base, Now in this building, well, I make a deal with a guardsman here, a door guardsman, and I make my way to the upper floors. Here we must avoid all detection from the enemies guarding their areas. They basically just walk around and they have a route that they follow. Basically, you don't want to get caught by them or you'll be reset to the start of this little maze area. So simply walk around avoiding them, to the best of your abilities. Now, a side note, I did find a man looking out a window here from the toilets. I'm not sure why he was doing this, but yeah, he's looking out the window from the toilets. Eventually, I make my way to a laptop, and after some hacking, we pass this quest as well. Next, we meet this lovely chap, who will interrogate us with questions to prove we're an officer. I get by these questions quite easily. We then find an oracle in the prison cell. Yes, the oracle was here all along. After a quick chat with the oracle and this fella named Lyndon, we head to the rooftop to the nearest helicopter, and we basically hijack it. Now, while I'm doing my hijacking, Morg, the Immortal, the leader of this area, tries to stop me, but we fly off anyway. We ignore him, and then this happens.
От судьбы сбежать невозможно. Кто-то владеет силой, а кто-то вынужден подчиниться. Всегда находится безумец, стоящий на пути урагана. Ты считаешь, оно того стоит? В тот самый последний момент, когда этот ураган будет разрывать тебя на куски, задумайся, не проще ли было преклонить колени?
Но пока жить можно. Если вы еще не спрятались, то чего ждете? Мозги хотите поджарить? Бегом в укрытие!
After this helicopter crashes, you simply basically wander around and run off into one direction, and you'll get teleported back to the helicopter, and then we can jump down into the ravine below. We run through this entire area, getting through the maze of tunnels. We've had, we even had to do some of that parkouring, which is a lot easier now, especially since Stalcraft X has been released, and the whole parkouring system was changed, with grappling of the ledges and all of that stuff as well. It is 100 times easier than it used to be, and it's just not as bad as it used to be. Now, we jump into this giant red tornado that is ahead of us to get whisked away to the next location. Let's discuss the next location here, the next area. Let's discuss this next area, by the way, because I found it to be a lot harder than it used to be, and it's definitely... You're going to die here a lot, trust me. So if you're having trouble with this area and you're watching, let me give you some tips here. Follow the video along and do what I do. Hopefully you'll get through that way. But during this area, you do need to avoid the enemies. If they see you, they will hunt you down, they will shoot you, and they will kill you. And then you have to respawn and start it again. Now, I find the best way, as I said, is follow this video here, and hopefully you'll make it through this area like I just did. But yeah, it's a pain in the neck. I think it used to be a lot better. I definitely think they need to look at this and improve it, because it's just not as good as it used to be, I find. I don't know, the enemies just seem to be more intelligent, a lot better at shooting and so forth than they used to be, so I don't know, just seems to be a bit odd, that's all. Anyways, after this, I had some more parkouring, avoiding rats, and just running through, another area, trying to survive. Eventually, you will get through all of this, and then you will see another cool-looking red tornado to whisk you away. Once I was whisked away and landed in, soft lands, we meet a man named Condor. And as we land from the whisking, he gives us all of our gear back, which I have to say was very nice of him indeed. He did not need to do that, but I appreciate it. Then we go find another man called the Shaman. If you've been playing Stalcraft, you know who the Shaman is. That's, he's the Shaman. We let him know that we've discovered the location of the blue spear, and that I must run to the radar as fast as possible to get to this blue spear before everyone else does. Whatever this thing was, it was calling for everyone to come get it. I make my way to the tunnels that are connected to the radar path, and we simply head through the tunnels, avoiding all sorts of dangers at the start, and then we, of course, meet enemies that we must defeat. After defeating enemy after enemy, we eventually get to the outside area. We must stop the antennas of the radar for reasons. Anyway, we clear out all the enemies again, and eventually we get to the big red button to turn off the radar. I have to say, pressing a big red button is always satisfying. By hitting this, we've completed the quest, which was rather easy, surprisingly. Next, we have to talk with the leader Morg of the Orderlies. That's Morg the Immortal, by the way, and this happens.
Князь хотел активировать голубой шар, чтобы собрать вокруг себя покорную армию. Он планировал не просто защитить найденный первопроходцами научный комплекс. Его целью было очистить зону от всех чужаков. Некоторые из нас испугались замысла князя. В конце концов, они решились выкрасть голубой шар, чтобы он не достался ему. Я был послан вернуть артефакт. Но когда я, наконец, добрался до него, что-то пошло не так. Я случайно активировал артефакт, и он воздействовал на меня. Паранойя князя сыграла со мной злую шутку. Он перестал доверять кому-либо в своем окружении. И когда я доставил шар, заплатил мне свинцом. Но сила шара, которую я активировал, не дала мне умереть. Мне удалось спастись. С той самой минуты что-то внутри меня переменилось. Артефакт изменил меня. Князь начал осуществлять свой план. У меня не было иного выбора, кроме как противостоять ему. Если он соберет войско блаженных, мы обречены на гибель.
From this, we actually discover Morg isn't really a bad guy after all. He was just kind of betrayed and, bit of a crusty man, after being betrayed. I would be too. I'd be pretty pissed off. Now we must defeat a boss that guards a tomb. Now, this boss fight is actually quite interesting, and it does take a little bit of a, skill to do. You can only deal damage to this boss by shooting the glowing armor parts located on the body of it. And then after you've dealt some damage to the boss, it will shoot out 3 electric beams from the center of the room. These 3 electric beams will link up with 3 panels. What it's doing here is it's healing itself, so you have to shoot the panels as fast as possible to prevent the tomb guard from healing back up. While this is happening, more enemies will spawn, so make sure you're also dealing with them or you might get overrun. The boss will also have another beam attack that you must dodge. It's actually very easy to dodge. It shoots it out, you'll see it. You don't need to worry about it, really. And then it also has a charge attack that you have to dodge like a bull is basically coming at you. I will say that is the hardest part I find. When it charges at you, just run in circles. That's probably the best way to deal with it. Now, after you've done this a few times, eventually the tomb guard's health will drop to 0. Next, we basically do some more parkouring and running through areas, and even killing a few enemies as well. Not too sure what I will show of this, because I'll be honest, I have cut a lot of footage out for this video because I didn't want the video to be like 50 minutes long. Well, it would actually be about an hour and a half, just so you know how much I've cut out. But anyway, we're going to continue onwards now through to the next area. Now we have a choice. We must side with Shaman or Morg. Now I'm going to be honest, Shaman is a bit boring. Morg the Immortal is way cooler. And Morg the Immortal just has cooler armor, cooler faction, and in my opinion, is just cool. So yeah, I went with Morg the Immortal. Now in this fight, we must fight off hordes of enemies while waiting for the pillars, also known as the columns, to be attacked. Basically what will happen is Morg will shoot off like a little rocket thing at the pillars, and then that means we can deal damage to them and we can advance through this area. We have to kill all 4 columns, and then once they're destroyed, and we've of course fought off the hordes of enemies, that will bring Shaman down to us. This is actually quite hard if you don't have decent armor and weapons. Now after a long fight, you will eventually deal enough damage to the Shaman, so basically he'll have like a shield around him, shoot the shield, he'll bring the shield down, deal damage to him, then he'll get the shield back up. You have to also deal with all the hordes of enemies coming at you, and eventually you will deal with Shaman himself. Now after a few times of this, we do, defeat Shaman in this boss fight. And, yeah, it just takes me a little while to do it, even with, some decent armor and weapons. So I will say, if you don't have the best armor and weapons, this might be one of the hardest boss fights you've ever played.
Голубой шар, столь желанный, столь таинственный, сводивший людей с ума, причем не только блаженных. Наконец, он рассыпался в прах. Шаман был уверен, что исполняет священное предназначение. Даже перед лицом неизбежной гибели он не утратил своей веры. По крайней мере, он встретил смерть без сожаления. Морг прошел длинный кровавый путь, но в конце выполнил свое обещание. Он сорвал планы князя и добился того, что шар оказался уничтожен. Теперь Морг свободен ото всех оков, но, кажется, слишком устал, чтобы продолжать свою жизнь в зоне. Его ждет большая земля. После уничтожения голубого шара многие блаженные либо сходят с ума, либо погибают. Шар перестает быть орудием в руках безумца, но остатки его энергии все еще присутствуют в зоне. Приток блаженных в зону снизится, но не иссякнет. Зов шара перестал быть чем-то зловещим, превращающим людей в марионеток чужой воли. Зов преобразился в эхо, за которым некоторые продолжают следовать. Князю удалось сбежать. Он охвачен злобой и жаждой мести. Куда он отправится? Что еще он собирается сотворить? Ясно одно. Так просто со сцены князь сходить не намерен. А куда отправишься ты? Много еще осталось нехоженных дорог, загадок и приключений. Свою историю в мире зоны ты пишешь сам.